Docker Compose. If you have ever used a multi-container setup in Docker, then you might have to run separate commands to start your database first, then your application. And if you are going to build the application, then whenever you make the changes in your source code, then you need to build it again and again. So to help you with this issue, we have Docker Compose. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Mayank and I am a software developer. And on this channel, we explore the strategies and tools that are commonly used in DevOps. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. So what is Docker Compose? It is simply a YAML configuration file which contains the list of resources you need to create to deploy your application successfully. In this one, you can mention the list of containers that you need, the list of networks that you need to connect your containers, and also the volumes. You can even set the number of replicas you need for a particular container. This means you can scale up or down your application as per your requirement. Let's try it out. In my previous video, I have discussed about this server.py file where we are connecting with a database container and inserting data into it. In the previous video, I have used separate Docker commands to start and bring up the application. But this time we will try to use the Docker Compose file. I will just show you a small recap. So this is our server.py file where we are connecting the database container and then we are creating the database, creating a table and inserting data into it. This was the Docker file that we have used last time. Here we are using the base image of Python and then we are copy the requirements file there and then copy the source code, and in the end we are running the file. So now this is our Docker Compose file. Here I will go through the syntax on how to set it up. For the list of containers, we have this keyword called services. Here we will define the services that we need to bring up our containers. First one is DB. So I'm going to need a MySQL DB. I will just mention the image restart, that's a condition that you can put, and then previously we were mentioning the environment with -e flag, but now I'm going to mention it using the environment key, and then inside it I will mention the required environment variables. Then we have this network. By default it will be a bridge network and we are creating it here. And then I have this health check. I will share why do we need this health check in a minute. This will run inside the container to ping the local host and check whether our services are running or not. Here we have another container. I have named it as server and I am building it with this context and this particular Docker file which we have mentioned here. Then I have mentioned that this should depends on the database. Why I did so? So first I need my database container to be up and running. If that is working fine, then only my server container should start, else it will fail. So here I have mentioned the condition that DB service should be healthy, and to check whether it is healthy or not, we have put this health check. Then we have this environment which is same as we have mentioned in the previous database service. Here we are mentioning the required DB. So DB host, we will mention the service name, username which is root, password which is root, as we have mentioned it here as well. And since we need to connect them to the same network, I have mentioned the networks as dbnet here as well. Now to start the services, we just need to write the command docker compose up. So here it is building the Docker image. Now it has started Docker DB service, and in the end we can see that it has started the Docker file server 1, which means it has started the server container, and then it has created the database, insert data into it, and then it has exited, and then I have stopped it using Control-C. As we can see, these containers are stopped but they are not removed. To remove them, we have to write the command docker compose down. So all the services that we have created are removed now. If I again try the up command, we can see that this time it did not build the server image. But that won't be helpful if you are working in a dev environment and with every change in your source code you might want to rebuild again. So to rebuild again, for the up command you can mention build. So every time whenever you try the command docker compose up, it will build the image and it will take the latest source code that you have. In this way, it will be helpful for your dev environment. In case you want to start the containers in the background, you can use the flag -d. As we can see, when we have tried the command with -d flag, it is just started the container but not showing the logs actively. So these are our active containers which are running, and our server container is stopped after running the file, and the MySQL container is still running. As you can see, this is how easy it is to start multiple containers using a single command. Let's check out best practices that needs to be followed while creating a Docker Compose file for the dev environment. First one is bound the application code as a volume. By default, Docker Compose will copy the application code in the container at the build time. This can be slow and it will make difficult to iterate quickly during development. Instead, you can mount the application code as a volume using the volumes key. In this way, whenever you make a changes in your, it will be reflected inside the container. Next one is to set the development specific environment. To do so, you can use a .env file and put all the environment variables there as per your dev environment. And then in your Docker Compose file, you can mention a env file from which your service needs to take the environment details. This way, you can separate out the behavior in dev environment as compared to prod environment. Next one is to expose the additional ports for debugging. When developing an application, you might want to use a debugger or other tools that require additional ports to be accessed. So you can expose the additional ports of the container using the ports key. This will expose port 8000 and 9000 of the container and map it respectively to your host machine. Now if we move on to the prod environment, here it is recommended to use the pre-built images instead of building images locally. It is like this because the image that you mention in the prod environment will be tested thoroughly by you. So chances of error are less when you are using the same image in prod. The next one is to use environment variables for configuration. It is not advised to hardcode your environment variables directly in the Docker Compose file. So if your shell environment contains the environment variables which are required by your service, then you can directly map them here like this, $symbol and then curly braces with the environment set in your host machine. So when you run this application, these details will be populated on its own. And the next one is to use volumes to persist data. Just now what we have seen, as soon as my container was down, data inside the container was lost. So it is recommended to use volumes to persist data. Just in case, whenever your container comes up again, it will use the same data. Here we are mounting the local MySQL folder from varlib directory to the varlib MySQL directory of the container. In this way, whatever data generated inside the container will be copied to the host machine. Use network aliases for service discovery. In production environment, you might have multiple containers running the same service. To make it easier for containers to discover each other, you can use network aliases to give each container a unique name on the network. For example, here we are giving the app container the network alias my app, which can be used by other containers to connect to it. These are some of the few best practices that you might follow in your prod environment for Docker Compose. Depending on your specific requirements, you might need to make additional changes. Docker Compose is a powerful tool that simplifies the development and orchestration of your applications. By defining your service, networks, and volumes in a single file, you can effortlessly manage complex environment. Like this video, subscribe to our channel for more exciting content, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest release. Thank you again for watching.